Hello, all you Frosty Townies. We're back for block 2, and I'm so excited. Here it is. It's the Snowflake Chalet. The good news is a lot of the stuff you learned in block 1, you're going to repeat in block 2. So I'm not going to because we have some great videos and written instructions for you out there already. But the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and make those lines like I talked about in block 1, and go ahead and get your background quilting all done. You want all that prep work done before we go into embroidery. Now this week we have 5 hoopings. I really wanted 4 again, but I couldn't do it because I got to get this fence in the middle of the snowbank. So we're going to break it down step by step for you, but basically hooping 1 is going to be Mr. Snowman skating and the first half of this snowbank. Hooping 2 will be the second half of the snowbank in this little tree. And you'll notice I use a few licenses here. I've lowered our tree compared to theirs because I wanted to get it all in one hooping. Hooping 3 is going to put our fence in the middle of our snowbank, and we're going to build the main part of our house. Hooping 4 is going to come over here and give us a snowflake and the top of the house. And last but not least, hooping 5 is going to give us this little skier sitting on the chairlift. One of the things I want you to be careful about this month is this little space right here, the chairlift. When we get there, you're going to see where I do a placement stitch for the chain and the hook and the skis all at the same time. When you put this hook down, you'll notice the first part of it is going to go underneath the chain, and then it flips over and goes on top of the chain. So that it has the effect of hooking onto the chain. So when you go to actually iron these down, put that first part of the hook underneath the chains just so you have the visual effect that it's hanging onto it correctly. Let's go ahead and do walk through hoop 1. I've got that on my screen using Embrilliance to walk through it again just so you see. Just like previous months, the first thing we're going to do is give you a placement line. That placement line is going to get stitched out on your stabilizer, just like last month. Not on our fabric, but on our stabilizer. And you're going to use that to help align your fabric. This is going to match the lines you drew on your fabric. Let's go into the stitch stabilizer simulator, which is right here, and let's watch it rock. Okay, so there's the first placement line. Then when that finishes, you're going to get your fabric, put it on top of your sticky back stabilizer using the pin method, just like we did last month, putting it on there. Once your fabric is in place on your hoop, you're going to see a placement line for the snowbank. Then you're going to take it out. You're going to iron that snowbank down. Now remember, only take and iron down the portion of the snowbank that is represented by this placement line. Do not iron the whole thing. It's only the half that we have just isolated with this placement line. Then it's going to go ahead and it's going to put your blanket stitches on to hold that snowbank down. Do. Then it's going to do another placement stitch for our little fat snowman. Then he's going to put the snowman down. Do. Then he's going to add some fancy skate blades and the arm, and an eye. Then it's going to say, here's where your skates are going to go, placement stitch for the skates. And just a reminder, you want to use the same color thread for your placement stitches as your finished blanket stitches because we're trying to build that edge up. When you're doing a satin stitch, it doesn't really matter what your placement stitch looks like, but when you're doing a blanket stitch, it does. I just think it looks prettier to keep building that edge up with the same color. So that doesn't change. That's the same as month 1. Then it's going to stitch down our little skates, and then it's going to stitch placement stitches for our scarf. Then it's going to put our scarf blanket stitches down. Then it's going to do his little hat and the band on his hat and his pom-pom. And then his lovely little nose gets completed. And on your instructions, all of this order is spelled out for you. If you don't have the ability to watch it like I just did, you will see on your instructions that it's spelled out. Now, I also improved the instructions based on some feedback to tell you exactly what the placement line was. And you'll see how that works when we go on to block number 2. We finished block number 1, so let's go ahead and scoot over to block 2. Here's block 2. Block 2, as you recall, is going to be this half of the snowbank and this tree. The placement line that I'm giving you for this stitch out is not the middle line of your fabric. It is the point where the last snowbank stops stitching. And I've made that very clear on the instructions. It is not the middle of your fabric. It is not the blue line you drew. It is the end of the snowbank that we did in hoop 1, because now we have to join these two together. What's nice is I've hidden the join behind the house and behind the fence post, so if you're off just a tad, it's not the end of the world. But if you try to use your blue line, you're going to be off about an inch. That's not cool. So remember, that vertical line that I'm giving you matches the snowbank. So you're going to see I give you that vertical line, and I give you the right-hand corner and the snowbank line. If I have to choose which one to use, which is more important, I'm going to choose the line where my snowbank ended. If I'm off about, a 1/16 of an eighth of an inch on the end, that doesn't bother me at all. But I want to really get that middle line lined up. So that vertical line becomes very critical in this snowbank. So after we get all our placement lines, you're going to take your fabric and you're going to put it on your sticky back stabilizer, and it's going to tell you where the snowbank goes. So see how close that is to where the stitching stopped? So use your scanner, use your projector, do whatever you need to do to line this up. Or be very careful when you pin it in place on the stabilizer. You want those points to match. I'm referring to this point right here and this point down here. Once that's done, now we can breathe. The rest is really easy. It's going to stitch the snowbank down. It's going to tell me where my tree trunk goes. It's going to put the blanket stitches on, and it's just going to build my tree just like we did last time. Just builds the tree, puts the snow caps on, and off it goes. And again, it is important that you do this in the order. Don't mix up your hoopings. I have to do hoop 1, hoop 2, hoop 3, hoop 4, hoop 5. I have to do them in order or things won't come out right, as you'll see when we move on to hoop 3. Match everything. Hoop 3 is going to put this fence in, and it's going to put this whole part of the house in. And you'll notice how I got that in one hooping is I might have shrunk our house by 1/4 of an inch. But we don't care because your pieces match exactly. So just so you know, he sits on the fence the right way, but I might have played with the size of my house just a tad to save a hooping here. So what's going to happen is it's going to give you placement lines. This is important. It's going to give you several placement lines. One is it's going to tell you where the bottom of your snowbank was. It's also going to give you a placement line that represents the top of your snowbank. And in addition to that, I'm going to give you a vertical line that matches the blue line you drew on your background fabric. That represents the middle of your fabric. That gives me 1, 2, 3 places to line this up to get it right. And in addition to that, again, you have your projectors, your scanners, your walking of your needles, all those other things we talked about before. So let's take a look at hoop 3. First thing it's going to do is give me my placement stitches that represent the snowbank, and that is the middle of my fabric. That is the line we drew on our fabric, this guy right here. And this represents the top of the snowbank that is already stitched down. This represents the bottom of the snowbank that is already stitched down. So if I get my fabric in place with these three marks, I'm good to go. After I'm good to go, I go. That's a placement line for my fence, stitching lines for my fence, placement line for my house, stitch my house down, the door, the sign at the top, which is found in your accessory package, by the way, the windows of the door and the house, and then the window panes. Block 3's done. Oh, hooping 3's done. Goes fast. Really does go fast, which is kind of nice. This one goes super fast too. This is our hooping number 4. Hooping number 4 is going to put this beautiful snowflake in place, and it's going to add the roof, the trim, and the pom-pom on the top of the house. Once again, you're getting some placement lines that are going to represent things that are already there. The first one I'm going to give you is the placement line that represents the top of this house that we just put on. Because guess what? You want your trim and your roof to line up with the top of your house. The second one I'm going to give you is a placement line that represents the middle of your fabric, where you drew that blue line. So I'm giving you 2 very important pieces. I'm giving you the top of the house and the middle of the fabric to line up with. So let's watch it happen. There it goes. That's the top of the house that we just stitched. Okay, so I'm going to line that up, and there's what would be a blue line on my fabric. That gives me plenty of good points to line up to ensure success. Then on goes the roof, and then goes the trim, and there goes the pom-pom, and then our lovely snowflake. The snowflake takes a while to stitch out, but it's well worth it. It's really well done. It's a pretty little snowflake. And that, my friends, is hooping 4. Hooping 5. This is the most tedious one of them, only because of how many little parts there are. That is this little guy up here. The only thing I need to remind you of and be cautious of is how this hook is put in. Now, worst case is you forget to put the front of the hook underneath here before you iron it down, and you have a hook that's sitting on top of the chain. And it's not the end of the world, but I like it going underneath. It looks more real. So you're gonna get this, and the ski all at the same time. And before you press this down, you're gonna make sure the top of that hook is behind the chain, and then the rest of the hook is in front of or over the chain. Other than that, we're just going to skip through. Again, the placement lines I'm going to give you on this one are representing the blue lines you drew in the corner of your fabric. This one's easy. He's not touching anybody. He's just out here floating over a tree. So we're going to be giving you a placement line that goes like this and like this. That's what you're going to line up, and that's what you're going to stitch out. Let's go watch it. So we see the placement line that represents the top right-hand corner of your design. Then we see the placement stitches for those 3 elements I already talked about. And then, you see the little snowman coming to life. Same old, isn't he cute? Bada bing, bada boom. Congratulations. You have just completed Block 2 of Frosty Goes to Town.